She said he makes me feel free, while I watched her chain herself to another lie. For a second I thought she'd dropped something on my chest. That's what it felt like. Anyway, this heavy, blunt weight pressing down, making it weirdly hard to breathe. Mia was standing on the opposite side of our coffee table, fingers digging into the back of our old blue armchair, eyes glassy but defiant. There was a half-drunk cup of peppermint tea next to her elbow, curling steam that didn't match the temperature in the room because I'd cracked the window out of habit and the air coming in was cold. My phone screen, still lit up on the table, was showing a paused voice note from a man I'd never met saying her name the way I used to, low and too familiar. My palms were damp. The cheap IKEA rug under my feet felt like sandpaper. Free, I repeated, my voice coming out flatter than I meant it to. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. He makes you feel free. I almost laughed, but it stuck halfway up my throat. Is that what we're calling it now? She flinched like I'd thrown something at her. You're twisting my words, she said automatically, arms folding across her chest so tightly her knuckles went white. Her eyes flicked to the phone, then back to me. You were never supposed to hear that. Yeah, I said. I picked up on that part. My hand shook a little as I picked up the phone again, thumb hovering over the play button. I wasn't supposed to hear him tell you he can't wait to have you to himself again, either, but here we are. Alex, turn it off, she snapped, the veneer cracking. You already listened, you don't have to torture yourself. I'm not torturing myself, I said quietly, staring at the tiny waveform on the screen. I'm just catching up to the story you've been telling yourself for months. I set the phone back down carefully like it might explode if I dropped it. You said he makes you feel free, but you're still here, lying to my face. That doesn't look like freedom to me, Mia. That looks like a different cage you built and locked from the inside. It was a Thursday night, the kind that's technically still part of the work week, but you can feel Friday hovering in the background. We'd been together for 6 years, living together for 3, engaged for 8 months. I'm 32, work as a graphic designer for a small marketing agency that thinks Pizza Fridays compensates for unpaid overtime. Mia's 31, a physiotherapist at a clinic that smells like eucalyptus oil and stubbornness. We have a 1-bedroom apartment in the inner west, a cat named Toast who likes boxes more than people, and a wedding Pinterest board that I guess I can archive now. We met in the most millennial way possible, a mutual friend's birthday picnic in the park, me arriving late with store-bought hummus, her sitting cross-legged on a blanket, yelling about how badly the host had cut the watermelon. She had this wild dark hair piled on top of her head. Messy bun, a nose ring, and a laugh that you could hear from the car park. I was wearing a Star Wars t-shirt and trying very hard to look like I didn't care if anyone talked to me. Our mutual friend Jess shoved me down onto the blanket next to her. This is Mia, she said. She's single and has opinions about everything. Mia, this is Alex. He's also single and overthinks everything. Go. Mia turned, looked me up and down, and grinned. Rate your hummus, she said, pointing at the tub in my hand. Honest score, no brand loyalty. 7, I blurted. Texture's a bit off, tastes like they panicked with the garlic. She burst out laughing. Oh my God, bless, she said. Everyone else has just been calling it fine, and I was starting to feel insane. I fell for her in stages. First her laugh, then the way she used her hands when she talked, then the way she'd go quiet and really listen when someone else was speaking. The first time she kissed me, outside a bus stop in the drizzle, she pulled back and said, "This feels dangerous, but the kind of dangerous that makes you want to lean in, not step back." Mia has always been obsessed with the idea of freedom. It's one of the first things I learned about her. Her Instagram bio used to say, "Here for a good time and a long time," with a little plain emoji. On our second date, sitting on a milk crate outside some bar that thought chairs were too mainstream, she told me about how she'd nearly bought a one-way ticket to South America after uni. I want a life that feels big, she said, chin tilted up like she was daring the sky to shrink. I don't want to wake up at 40 and realize I traded every wild thing I could have done for a mortgage and a sensible hatchback. I, on the other hand, am the kind of person who has a spreadsheet for my car repayments and knows exactly how many coffees I can buy a week without derailing my savings plan. My idea of big was being able to work part-time one day to do freelance illustration. Where she saw cages, I saw foundations. Somehow back then, those differences felt like they balanced each other out. You keep me grounded, she would say, crashing onto the couch after a night out with friends, using my lap as a pillow. And you remind me to actually leave the house, I'd reply, brushing hair out of her eyes. We built a life out of those roles. It was small, but it felt ours. Saturdays at the farmer's market, Sunday mornings in bed until noon, weeknights where I'd be hunched over my laptop fiddling with fonts while she stretched people's hamstrings in her head, explaining, if I have to say engage your core one more time I'm going to scream. The first time she used the word trapped was a month after we got engaged. We were lying on the floor because it was too hot for the couch, the fan doing that thing where it rotates just enough to give you a whisper of air before taunting someone else across the room. Her ring was still new and shiny. She kept twisting it with her thumb like she couldn't decide if she loved it or if it was cutting off her circulation. "Does it freak you out?" she asked suddenly. "What? It's forever." I stared at the ceiling, which had a tiny crack in the corner I'd been meaning to call the landlord about. "Sometimes," I admitted, in a good way mostly, like I can stop auditioning, you know. "That sounds like a prison sentence," she said, half laughing. "You are hereby sentenced to stop auditioning and accept love." "Sorry for being disgustingly romantic," I said, nudging her with my foot. She rolled onto her side to look at me. I keep having these flashes of being 40 and having 2 kids and a dog, and doing the same school drop-off every day and wanting to scratch my skin off," she said. "Is that insane?" "No," I said, "I think everyone gets that sometimes." "You don't," she shot back. She wasn't completely wrong. I've always been more content with routine than she is. But I also thought and said that excitement and stability weren't mutually exclusive, that we could travel and try new things and still come home to something solid. She seemed to accept that. She kissed me and said, "Okay, just promise me we won't sleepwalk through our lives, yeah?" "I promise," I said. I meant it. I still do. Enter Ethan, because of course his name was Ethan. I didn't meet him right away. I heard about him in fragments first. A new client at her clinic, a musician who'd done something vague with a band I'd never heard of, then apparently had a shoulder injury from climbing in Laos or something equally aggressively cool. "He's like ridiculous," Mia said one evening, poking her fork into her pasta. "You know those people who walk into a room and you can sense that they're used to being the most interesting person there." "Sounds exhausting," I said. "Kind of," she admitted, eyes lighting up. "But also, I don't know, he's funny, and he doesn't apologize for wanting what he wants." "Sounds like you," I said. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes all the way. "He's just free," she said, rolling the word around like it tasted good. "He left uni 2 credits short of finishing because he said he felt called to go traveling. Who does that?" "People with rich parents," I suggested. She laughed. "Yeah, probably." At the time, it didn't occur to me to be threatened by some wandering guitarist who couldn't finish a degree. Mia had had plenty of free-spirited clients before: yoga teachers, surf instructors, one guy who lived in a van. She'd always come home with stories, then roll her eyes and say, "They're fun, but I could never actually live like that." What I didn't clock was how the timing lined up. Around the same time, Ethan appeared as a main character in Mia's stories. Everything else in her life was tightening. Her clinic had a new manager who was obsessed with KPIs. Our rent had just gone up. My agency lost a big client, and suddenly my boss was talking about really needing everyone to be flexible with hours for a while. Our weekends started filling up with wedding-related stuff, venue visits, menu tastings, invitation designs. "Everyone keeps asking me what kind of flowers I want," she said one night, flopping onto the bed. "I don't know, the living kind." "You can just say I don't care," I said. "Yes, I can," she agreed, "but then your mum looks at me like I've confessed to killing a puppy." We laughed about it, but looking back, I can see how all those tiny expectations might have felt like fingers closing around her. If she'd said that, really said it, we could have talked. We could have unpicked the pressure, figured out what was actually ours and what we could drop. She didn't talk. She got drunk with Ethan after an evening appointment instead. I didn't know that at the time, obviously. At the time, all I knew was that she'd texted me at 7. "Mia, running late, last client's shoulder is a mess. Might grab a drink with Caro after to debrief. Love you, Roman 20. Caro is one of her colleagues, a perfectly nice woman whose Instagram is 80% pictures of her dog. It fit. I microwaved leftover stir-fry, watched 3 episodes of some doco about people renovating their houses for TV, and fell asleep on the couch. What I know now is that at 8:30, after her last client left, Ethan had texted, "Ethan, still owe you that drink for fitting me in last week." And she'd replied, "Mia, haha, I never turned down free drinks." When I eventually scrolled through their thread months later, I found the photo she'd sent him that night, her in the bathroom at some bar, lipstick fresh, hair down, middle finger up at the mirror with the caption, "To capitalism." He'd replied with a flame emoji, "And you look dangerous." That was the first chain looped quietly around her ankle. The obvious red flags started small, they always do. Her phone, which had previously lived face down but unlocked on our coffee table like everyone's, started coming with her to the bathroom, to the shower, to the mailbox. She started dressing differently for late clients, a swipe of lipstick, a nicer top. When I commented, she shrugged. Putting effort into myself makes me feel better, she said. You want me to see patients in the same ugly clinic polo every day for the rest of my life. She was quicker to irritation. How was your day? After she walked in the door started being met with, can I just have 5 minutes to not answer questions? Toast, who had previously adored her more than me, gravitated toward my lap more. Animals pick up weird things before we do. I'm not saying my cat knew she was cheating. I'm just saying Toast started hissing at the sound of FaceTime ringing from her phone, which in hindsight is funny in a cosmic kind of way. The first real jolt came via Spotify, of all things. We were doing that couple thing where you potter around the house on a Sunday afternoon pretending to be adults. I was cleaning the bathroom. She was in the bedroom, organizing the wardrobe, which mostly meant trying on clothes and deciding she hated all of them. My phone was connected to our Bluetooth speaker, a playlist on shuffle. Halfway through some random indie track, it cut out. What the hell, I muttered, wiping my bleaky hands on a towel, heading into the lounge to check my phone. The screen said playback paused, listening on another device. The other device was listed as Mia's AirPods. Mia, did you steal my Spotify again? I called. No answer. The music started up again, something I didn't recognize. A male voice, low and acoustic, singing about roads and never wanting to be tied down. I walked toward the bedroom. The door was half closed. Through the crack, I could see Mia sitting on the edge of the bed, phone in her lap, earbuds in. She was swaying slightly, eyes closed. I knocked softly and pushed the door open a bit more. Hey DJ, can I have my account back? She jumped like I'd fired a gun. One earbud fell out. Jesus, Alex, she snapped, clutching the phone to her chest. Do you ever knock? I did knock, I said, holding up my hands. Twice. She glared for another second, then sighed. Sorry, she muttered, you just scared me. Didn't mean to, I said. I just want to listen to my cleaning playlist without your existential road trip vibes. She rolled her eyes, the corner of her mouth twitching. Shut up, she said. It's Ethan's band, he sent me some demos. I'm a designer. I know objectively that combo, the close protective grip on the phone, the way her voice softened on his name, was a bad sign. But in that moment my brain filed it as, she has a hot musician client she's a bit fangirly over. Not ideal, but survivable. He good? I asked. She looked down at her phone, then back at me. Yeah, she said slowly. He's honest, you know. His lyrics actually mean something. Unlike my 2000s pop punk playlist, which is pure trash. Obviously, I said, trying to tease. She smiled properly then and patted the bed next to her. Come here, she said. Listen to this one. Tell me if I'm crazy or if it actually hits. We sat shoulder to shoulder, one earbud each, listening to this guy sing about sleeping on floors and not belonging anywhere, and how everyone else seemed content with their 9-to-5s and IKEA furniture while he was suffocating. Mia's eyes were distant, like she was seeing something I was. What do you think? She asked. He has a good voice, I said honestly. The lyrics are melodramatic. She snorted, says the guy whose favorite album has a song literally called Misery Business. Hey, I protested. Classic. She laughed, leaned her head on my shoulder for a moment, then straightened. Anyway, she said, standing up, back to the wardrobe of doom. Later, when I read those same lyrics in the Notes app screenshot she'd sent him, captioned, "The free verse kills me," I wanted to throw my phone through the window. The actual discovery, though, wasn't a dramatic walk-in or a lipstick stain. It was my own stupid Google Drive. As a designer, I live half my life in shared folders. I also, because I'm me, back way too much up to the cloud. At some point early in our relationship, we'd set up a shared folder for house stuff, lease documents, joint budget spreadsheets, a subfolder for wedding that slowly filled with quotes and mood boards. I mostly used it on my laptop. Mia would add things from her phone. One night I was looking for our electricity bill to check the account number. I opened the Drive app, tapped into the shared folder, and saw a new subfolder I didn't recognize, Pilates playlists. Mia doesn't teach Pilates. She does Pilates. She complains about Pilates. She does not curate playlists for it. Curious, I opened it. Inside were a bunch of audio files, all with titles like Session 3 Shoulders and Full Body Flow. I tapped the first one. Static, then a male voice filling my tiny living room. All right, he said. Let's start with a deep breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Remember, you're here for you. The rest of the world can wait. Not what I expected. I listened for another few seconds. It genuinely sounded like a guided workout recording, generic but decent. I was about to exit when I heard Mia's voice, faint but audible, laughing in the background. "Can you tone down the sexy voice?" she joked. "People are here for rehab, not a phone sex line." "Oh, you like the sexy voice," he replied, lowering his tone comically. "Don't pretend." Their laughter overlapped. I stopped the audio, my skin buzzing. Why was this in our shared folder? Why was she in the background? Since when was she recording things with clients outside work? I scrolled down. At the bottom of the folder there was a file named test, delete, later. No extension, just a grey icon. My gut clenched. I tapped it. It wasn't a guided Pilates track. It was a voice note. Raw, unedited. At first all I heard was shuffling, like someone fumbling with a phone. Then Ethan's voice, closer now, softer. "You know this is insane, right?" he said. A rustle, fabric, Mia's voice muffled like her mouth was pressed against something. "Shut up," she said, but she was smiling. "You can hear that when you know someone." "You have a fiancé," he said. She sighed. "Don't say that right now." "It's true." "So is this?" There was a tiny gasp, a half laugh from him. My stomach turned. "He makes you feel what?" he asked, teasing. "Safe," she said, and the way she said it made the word sound like a cage of its own. "He's good, it's just—" "What?" he pressed. "He doesn't make me feel like this," she whispered. "Like, if I don't move, I'll explode." Silence, except for their breathing. Then a sound I recognized from years of sharing a bedroom with her, just directed at someone else. I stopped the recording, fingers numb. The room spun a little bit. Toast, asleep on the back of the couch, lifted his head and meowed, offended that I'd jolted suddenly. I don't know how long I sat there. It could have been 10 seconds, it could have been an hour. Eventually my body did things without me. Closed the app, put the phone down, stood up, walked to the bathroom, splashed water on my face. My reflection in the mirror looked like someone who'd had all his coordinates scrambled. A saner person might have waited, taken time, planned what to say. I didn't. I walked straight back into the living room, grabbed my phone, hit play, turned the volume up and put it on the coffee table. When Mia came home 15 minutes later, dropping her keys in the bowl, she froze. Her own voice, breathless and laughing with someone else, filled the room. "Alex," she said. I didn't say anything. I let the recording play to the end. The last sound was her muffled, "You make me feel free," followed by his low chuckle. Then the file ended with a click. Silence. She stared at the phone like it was a snake. "What is that?" she asked, but the question came out shredded. "Something you left in our shared drive," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. "In the house stuff folder." That was considerate at least, easy to find. Color drained from her face. "You went through my files," she said, seizing on that like a lifeline. "There are files," I said. "You uploaded it there." "That's private," she said. "So is my relationship," I snapped, the first real edge in my voice. Or I thought it was. She closed her eyes, inhaled, exhaled. When she opened them again, they were shining. "I can explain," she said. "Don't," I said. "Don't start with 'it's not what it sounds like,' because it's exactly what it sounds like." She flinched. "Okay," she said, voice trembling. "Okay, yes, I've been seeing him. I didn't mean for it to go that far, it just—" "Don't say just happened," I cut in. "You had to make choices, multiple choices, over and over. Recording it and uploading it to our shared folder was an especially creative choice, I'll give you that." And that's when she grabbed the chair, took a breath, and said the line about freedom. "He makes me feel free," she said, like it was a confession and a justification rolled into one. "I know how that sounds, I know it's shitty, but you have to understand I felt so suffocated by everything. Work, the wedding, this life we built. I looked up one day and realized I was just ticking boxes. Be a good partner, be a good daughter, be a good physio, be sensible. Grateful I couldn't breathe. So your solution was to lie to me," I said, each word like stepping carefully on broken glass. "My solution was to find somewhere I could remember what it felt like to be me," she shot back. "Before all of this, before spreadsheets and ring settings and questions about when we're going to have kids." I laughed then. It wasn't a nice sound. "Do you hear yourself?" I asked. "You keep saying free like you're starring in some indie movie where you run barefoot through a field. But all I see is you building this whole separate secret life and then chaining yourself to keeping it hidden. Sneaking around, lying, flinching every time your phone buzzes. That's not freedom, Mia. That's another prison. You just painted the bars a cooler color." Her eyes welled up. "You always do this," she said quietly. "Do what?" "Turn everything into a metaphor I can't argue with," she said. Make it sound like I've written some tragic poem about myself instead of being a person who fucked up. Well, I said, you did fuck up, that part's not metaphor. She sank onto the armchair, hands in her hair. I'm not saying what I did was right, she said. I'm not, I hate myself for it half the time. Just half, I muttered. She shot me a look. You think I don't know I've blown up my own life, she said. You think I don't lie awake at 3 a.m. wondering what the hell I'm doing. But then I see him and it's like everything drops away. I'm not anyone's fiancé or daughter or responsible physio. I'm just me, he sees me. I see you, I said, and my voice cracked on the word before I could stop it. I've seen you for 6 years, in your ugliest pajamas, at your cousin's funeral, throwing up in a hostel in Bali, screaming with laughter at a dog in a jumper. You're going to stand there and tell me he sees you more because he listens to your playlist and tells you what you want to hear about running away. She opened her mouth, closed it again. For a second she looked 12 almost, so unsure and small that my chest physically hurt. Then her face hardened. You wouldn't get it, she said. You've never wanted to blow up your whole life just to see what happens. That's true, I said, because when I want change, I talk about it. I don't set fire to everything and pretend the flames are a sunrise. We spiraled from there, me asking her when it started, her insisting it was only a few months, then admitting it had been maybe 6 off and on, then, okay, closer to a year, but we didn't sleep together until recently, as if that timeline scaling was supposed to comfort me. I found out she kissed him for the first time in the clinic storeroom after a late appointment, that they'd just talked for weeks, exchanging long messages about feeling stuck, sharing playlists and childhood stories before anything physical happened, that she told herself it was emotional support for a while, not cheating, because if she didn't take her clothes off it didn't count. It was like having a secret room where I could breathe, she said. And every time you stepped into that room, you stepped further away from me, I replied. She cried then, properly, hands over her face, shoulders shaking. I sat there feeling weirdly hollow. I'd always imagined that if something like this happened, I'd be yelling, throwing things, dramatic. Instead, I felt like someone had unplugged me. I'm sorry, she kept saying between sobs. I'm so sorry, Alex. I'm the worst person in the world. I didn't disagree. I also knew that letting her sit in I'm the worst too long would morph into, well, if I'm the worst anyway, what's the point in trying to be better? I've watched enough people weaponize self-loathing to excuse themselves. I don't want you to punish yourself forever, I said eventually. I just don't know if I can do this with you anymore. Do what? She whispered. Be with someone who, the second they feel hemmed in, decides lying is the best route to freedom, I said, who sits on our couch with our cat and our ugly rug and our life all around, and tells me that some guy I've never met makes you feel free, like I'm, what, your warden. She winced. I never said that. You didn't have to, I said, it's implied. We argued again about whether what we had was suffocating. She listed the ways my love for routine felt like walls. I listed the ways her love for chaos felt like grenades. At some point, we both ran out of metaphors and just sat there breathing in the silence. Do you love him? I asked finally. She stared at the carpet. I don't know, she said. I love how I feel around him. Does that count? For you, I said, probably. Do you love me? She shot back. I didn't have to think. Yes, I said, which, if I'm honest, hurt more than if the answer had been no. We slept in separate rooms that night. Well, she slept in the bedroom, eventually. I lay on the couch with toast curled into my stomach, watching the light on the smoke alarm blink on and off and on and off. The next few days were a weird limbo. Our flat turned into a demilitarized zone. We moved around each other cautiously, like if we bumped shoulders everything would shatter. I went to work, clicked around in Illustrator, made cheerful ads for things I didn't care about. She went to the clinic, came home later than usual, eyes shadowed. I told 2 people, Jess, who had introduced us, and my older brother Mark. Jess's response was a lot of swearing and one long voice note that ended with, if you want me to help you set his guitar on fire I will, but also, you deserve someone who doesn't need a secret lover to feel like themselves. Mark's response was quieter. Are you okay? He asked. No, I said. Do you want to try work it out? He asked. I don't know, I admitted. That's okay, he said. You don't have to know today. Just don't stay because you're afraid of starting over. That's a shit reason to swallow this. There was one more conversation with Mia that tipped things from, maybe we can salvage this, to I need to get out while there's something left of me. It happened 3 nights after I found the recording. We were sitting at the kitchen table, a neutral territory we'd picked for serious talks, back when the harshest thing we'd had to discuss was a blown holiday budget. 2 mugs of tea sat between us, untouched. "I've been thinking," she said, picking at a chip in the laminate. "We could go to counseling." "Okay," I said cautiously. "We could figure out why I did this," she continued. "Why I keep needing to escape. Maybe it's not about you, maybe it's old stuff, my parents, whatever." "I'm sure some of it is old stuff," I said, "but the part where you made a choice not to tell me, that's new, that's us." She nodded, chewing her lip. "I'm willing to work on it," she said. "On myself, on us." "What does that look like to you?" I asked. She opened her mouth, closed it. "Therapy, honesty, maybe taking the wedding off the table for a bit. Not forever," she added quickly when I tensed. "Just pause, so I don't feel like I'm being shoved along a conveyor belt I didn't build." "That's fair," I said slowly. "I don't want to marry someone who feels shoved." A flicker of relief crossed her face. "So," she said, "we try." I looked at her, really looked. At the ring she'd taken off and put in a dish by the sink 3 days ago and hadn't touched since. At the hollow under her eyes, the new tension in her jaw. At the way her phone, flipped face down on the bench, seemed to vibrate like a living thing between us even when it wasn't buzzing. "Have you stopped seeing him?" I asked. She hesitated. That half-second pause said everything before her mouth even opened. "I told him we need space," she said. "That's not what I asked," I said. "He's not taking it well," she said. "He says he doesn't want to just cut me off, that it feels cruel." "It feels cruel to him?" I asked, incredulous. "To both of us," she said, and that's when something inside me went very, very still. "So you're asking me," I said slowly, "to go to counseling with you, put our wedding on pause, relearn how to trust you, while you keep this guy on emotional life support so it doesn't feel cruel to him?" She winced. "When you say it like that." "There's no other way to say it," I said. "You want a safety rope to freedom and a safety net with me." "I don't want to lose you," she said, and for the first time since this started, it sounded less like a confession and more like a child saying they don't want to lose their favorite toy. "You lost me when you decided you couldn't breathe, and instead of opening a window, you drilled a tunnel into someone else's apartment," I said softly. "I just hadn't caught up yet." She stared at me, tears spilling over. "So that's it," she whispered. "You're just done." "I'm not just anything," I said. "I've been slowly coming undone for months, I think. I just didn't know why. Now I do, and I can't unknow it. I can't unknow that when you feel trapped, your instinct is to lie, to build a whole secret architecture of freedom behind my back and then tell yourself it's because the world put you in chains." "I can change," she said. "I can work on that." "I hope you do," I said, surprising both of us. "For your sake, for whoever you end up with next. I just don't want to be the person you practice on." She covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. "I hate you," she sobbed. "Because you're right, and because you're leaving, and because I did this and I can't blame anyone else." "I don't hate you," I said, and it was true in a way that pissed me off. "I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm grieving, but I don't hate you, I just won't live like this." We ended the lease early. It cost us a stupid amount of money, but it felt worth it to physically dismantle the life we'd built in that space. She moved into a share house with a friend on the other side of the city. I moved into a smaller apartment above a noisy restaurant, just me and toast, and the constant clang of dishes from downstairs. People keep asking me if she stayed with Ethan. The answer is, for a bit. Jess told me she saw them together once, weeks after the breakup, at a bar neither of us had ever been to, his hand on the back of her neck in that possessive way I'd seen 100 times in that stupid voice note. "They looked intense," Jess said, stirring her coffee, "like two people who know they're bad for each other but can't stop." "Fits," I said. A month after that, Mia texted me. "Mia, I know we said no contact for a while, but I just wanted you to know I ended things with him. Properly. I'm starting therapy next week." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "Me, I'm glad you're getting help. I hope it helps." She replied with a single blue heart. I didn't answer. Sometimes people ask why I did get revenge. Why I didn't send the recording to her clinic or to Uthan's bandmates or post it anonymously somewhere. The petty part of me absolutely fantasized about it in the early days. I pictured him getting called out by his friends, her having to explain herself to everyone. But every time I imagined following through, I felt tired, more tired than vindicated. Wapanazang, what I'd heard would tether me to it forever. It would mean living in a world where my identity is the guy who blew up his ex's life in return. I already lived for months as the guy whose fiancé cheated on him with someone she called free. I didn't want that to become my whole story. So what am I doing instead? Honestly, a lot of tiny, boring things. I go to my own therapist. I draw dumb cartoons of toast and post them on an Instagram no one follows. I started running, which is something I used to make fun of people for, but it helps, as cliched as that sounds, to move my body until my brain shuts up for half an hour. I see friends. I tell them the truth when they ask how I am instead of saying fine by reflex. And I'm re-examining my relationship with freedom. I used to think of freedom as this grand, external thing, plane tickets, flexible work, being able to move cities at the drop of a hat. Being with Ma, I learned that for some people, freedom is adrenaline. It's breaking rules, taking risks, refusing to choose so you can keep your options open. For me, I'm realizing freedom looks different. It's being able to trust that when someone says, I love you, they're not also saying, and I will tell you only the parts of my life that don't threaten my story about myself. It's knowing that if they feel trapped, they will come to me and say, I feel trapped, rather than carving an exit by themselves and blaming the house when it collapses. I don't know yet if I'll ever be able to fully trust someone again. That's the messy truth. There are days when I think about dating and my stomach drops like I've missed a stair. But there are also days when I catch myself humming while making coffee in a kitchen that only has my stuff in the cupboards, and I realize I feel lighter than I did in that last year with her, even with the grief. Even with the ache, I feel more honest. Ma once told me before all this that she unveiled how content I seemed. I brushed it off, made a joke about low standards, but I think about that sometimes now. How my version of feeling alive was never the problem. It's not inherently superior to hers, it's just not compatible. She said he makes me feel free, like it was a trump card. Like invoking freedom rendered any hurt collateral, unfortunate but justified. Now when my brain replays that moment on a loop, as it likes to do at inconvenient times, I try to picture the rest of the chain. The secret messages, the deleted call logs, the lies about drinks with colleagues that were really late-night studio sessions. Each one another link, each one another shackle she'd have to carry or cut. He didn't make her free, he just gave her a different set of rules to break and another person to hide from. Leaving wasn't me punishing her, it was me refusing to pick up the other end of that chain and call it love. And if there's any kind of freedom in this whole mess for me, it's that. The quiet, boring, radical choice to build a life where feeling alive doesn't require betraying myself or someone else.